Well, it's been a long couple of days of waiting. We're doing our best to keep everybody occupied. We got out of the hotel yesterday. We walked over to the minor league ballpark, got out on the infield, threw the football around, kicked the soccer ball. They had a little pickleball court set up. So just to get out and get some fresh air was nice. Obviously today it's raining, so we didn't go again today. We've already had 2 film sessions. Try to keep the days full of stuff for the kids to do. I don't want them laying up in their room. We've had study hall every day, sometimes twice a day, depending on what their workload is. We practiced late again today, 5 o'clock. We went yesterday at Hinkle, which was a first for me. You know, I lived a long time in the Midwest and never been in Hinkle where we're playing. And so that was really a cool moment, not only for myself, but for the kids. So I let them enjoy that. They took some film as they walked in, but then I got them focused on practice. We're here to win a game. And so I want them to enjoy these moments, but I want them to lock in when it's time to lock in and prepare to play a good Syracuse team. So with that being said, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thanks, Coach. We'll open up for questions. We'll begin with Mark.
Thank you. Mark Larson, coach from Spectrum News in Syracuse, Wisconsin native, so a fellow Midwesterner like yourself. But I haven't figured out how to get out of the snow. Can you talk a little bit about this zone? Everybody says when it comes to tournament time, this is why Syracuse does well, because of their zone. You got to see it in 2012. It's been a while, but what about that zone, and how do you prepare for that?
It's not like it's one zone. You know, some people say, well, they zone, and here's how you attack a zone. They play it so many different ways. That's the beauty of what they do. They can extend it, cover shooters. They can pack it back in and cover the inside. And so they adjust to what we're doing. So if we have success doing one thing, they'll make adjustments. And so even though it's a zone, it's not the same zone all the time. So we've prepared a couple different ways to attack it. I think we have some good ideas. But with that being said, once you step on the floor, that's a whole nother story.
Is there an intimidation factor with it because it's talked about so much? Is that part of it mentally to kind of tell them it's not like they're doing anything different?
I think our kids are excited to play against it, to be honest with you. We've got a lot of good shooters. So I suppose if you had a team of non-shooters, you might be overly concerned. But I think we can stretch it with our shooters, and then what we can do on the interior remains to be seen. So I think they will extend to find our shooters. We have 3 or 4 guys that shoot the ball at a high level. So hopefully we can get them extended a little bit where we can attack both inside and out.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Mark Larson. We'll go to Mark Ziegler.
Coach, you know, this is such a unique year, and you look at Syracuse's schedule, they've played nobody outside the Eastern time zone. You look at your schedule, you didn't get on a plane until January, and you played only teams in the Pacific and Mountain time zones. Usually you'd have some kind of cross-pollination, and you played Syracuse in 2012. Is there like almost an uneasy feeling that there's a great unknown that you don't know how West Coast basketball is going to stack up against East Coast basketball this year because they just haven't played?
Yeah, I mean, everybody had their schedules reduced this year. And so unless you played in an exempt event early in the year, the chances of people traveling time zones were pretty small. Not a lot of teams did that. And so I like the fact that we're going to have something new to experience. And it's a COVID year, so we've waited all year to play an East Coast team, and we get to do it here on the biggest stage in the NCAA tournament.
Is there anything that changes the way you approach a game when you don't have, I mean, I don't even think your opponents played their opponents, where you just, you have the film, but you don't have that. Normally you'd be able to say, okay, someone in our league played them, I'm going to call them and see what they did and talk to them. Is it make it different to approach a game when you don't have that?
Yeah, sometimes you like to play a common opponent, then you can kind of see what it was, but no common opponents. We know they play a hard schedule in the ACC, and they're well coached, and the hard thing is waiting so long to play them. You know, as a coach, usually we need 2 or 3 days to prep. We have a game plan in, but we got to be careful it's not paralysis by analysis, where the coaches especially are watching so much tape on each other, trying to dissect to no end. At the end of the day, it's a basketball game. We have to put the ball in certain areas to be successful. We have to guard an extremely good team attacking one-on-one off the dribble, and at its core, that's what it's going to be.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Mark. Let's go to Paul Garrison.
Hey, Coach. Throughout the year, you've spoken about the importance of routine for your team. How have you prepared them to have no ill effects with the loss of routine this week?
We just try to keep them busy, and everybody's doing that. You read the stories where some teams are bringing a ping pong table in and they're doing different things to try to give them other things to do. We're keeping them regimented. We've been hard at study hall, and even though that sounds like, wow, what a thing to have to do on the road, our kids enjoy academics. They like study hall. They get work done. That's what they're student athletes. And so it's not all fun and games, but I like the fact that we can spend an hour and a half a day on our academics. We took a walk outside yesterday, went and messed around on the baseball infield, and we're watching a few more film sessions than we normally would. We don't keep them in here all day, maybe a 15-minute film session to get them out of their rooms. We have our strength coach along, so we had a lifting session in an NCAA facility here. We do extended stretching, maybe even on the hallway. We get them out in the hallway and do some stuff. So we try to keep them occupied, but at the end of the day, everybody is going through the same thing. It's not like we're the only team going through it. Everybody in this event is in the hotel all day and trying to find ways to keep their teams engaged and mentally sharp.
Very related question, but there's obviously been more interviews and media responsibilities for your players. Have you done any coaching to, again, that mental sharpness, to keep that mental sharpness, even though they're having the grind of all the media and all the things that they're having to deal with?
To be honest, it seems like less media when I've been to the tournament. I'm used to taking 3 or 4, the whole starting 5 into a meeting room and facing all the media, and even teams that aren't interested in you. They're at the event, they're at that site, and so there's a lot of extra media. Now it's one coach is doing the media, and then a player does NCAA media. It's not all the team. And so I think a lot of the responsibilities are less this year than normal.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Paul. Let's go to Darnay.
Hey, Dutch, good to see you. You guys posted pictures with the jerseys of the guys from last year's team. I was curious how that idea came about.
Well, we had talked about doing it if we made it here. We brought their jerseys from last year to kind of honor the guys that could have played in this event last year but didn't get a chance, and let them know that we're thinking of them, that even though they're not here with us physically, they're with us here mentally, and that they're always a part of Aztec basketball. And that's kind of what makes us great. It's a true family atmosphere. When you're on campus, as long as I've been 22 years, you think back to players 22 years ago are raising families of their own, and we do as good a job as anyone staying connected to our former players.
In your experience, what does momentum mean going into the tournament? You guys obviously have about as much of it as opposed to anybody but Gonzaga going in this year. What's the carryover typically like? Obviously, you've talked about the last few weeks as you've kind of been in the conference scheduling routine. What's the value of that now as you transition into the NCAA tournament?
It all depends on how you want to look at it. Coaches are great at spinning things into positives. So if we'd have lost early in the conference tournament, we'd have said, great, we needed to rest our legs anyway and get ready to play. When you win and you're on a win streak, you say, great, we want to keep playing, we're on a real win streak. And so we're all just trying to get our teams in a positive frame of mind, whether we lose early in a tournament, late in a tournament. When you move to the NCAA tournament, it's trying to get your team believing in themselves, and no matter what that message is, get them believing they have a chance to win here.
Thanks.
Thanks, Darnay. We'll go to Jacob.
Hey there, Coach. Thanks for taking my question. What does it mean to be back at the tournament this year after being so highly touted and potentially ranked as the #1 seed last year?
It means a lot. I mean, obviously, and I said this to Craig Smith, because they were going to go to the tournament last year as the conference champion, tournament champion, and both our teams from the Mountain West didn't get a go. And so it almost felt like it was fitting, gratifying to take our teams back. Now, we're both missing really important pieces from a year ago, but that's the beauty of basketball. You don't build a roster for 8 years or 12 years or even 6 years. You have it for 4 years, and sometimes you have it for 1 year. In the case of, we had a lot of fifth-year senior transfers, and so we feel awful for that team that didn't go last year, but the guys that returned from last year's team, we take great pleasure that we could fight our way back into the field again this year.
And are you worried at all about the chance for COVID-19 cases disrupting March Madness in 2021?
I think we'd be naive not to be. I mean, this is a pandemic, and so we've had a player test positive from a team in the event already, and it could happen again. We just don't know. And so I think the NCAA has done everything in their power to keep us safe, to keep us in an environment where we can play basketball. But sometimes bad luck happens, exposure happens, and hopefully it won't happen to us or any of the remaining teams in this event, and we can pull off a great NCAA tournament.
Great, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jacob. Let's go back to Mark Larson.
Hey, Coach, I just want to ask you, one of the popular upset picks in the first round is Syracuse. And I know that that's probably not going to affect you, but how does that affect your players? They pay attention to that?
Only if we bring it up. I don't think they're looking at it. So you can spin it, hey, they're picking against us, they doubt us. You know, whatever coaches got to say to get their team ready to play, we're going to use. And so I don't think it's surprising. Hopefully they're not picking Syracuse because they're comparing the coaches. I might be a little upset over that, but Coach Boeheim's won a national championship and he's won a lot of games. So hopefully they're not picking on me.
I don't think it had anything to do with you. But
Thank you, Mark. Let's go to Mark Ziegler.
Coach, so much is being made of you against their zone, but not very much is being talked about the other end of the floor. What are the challenges of guarding them? I mean, it seems like they've got bigger players, particularly in the backcourt, that can just shoot right over you, and there's really little you can do other than contest it. I mean, how do you defend against a team like that?
You know, they do a great job of picking the matchup they like, and they've got multiple players that can attack aggressively on the dribble, and they seem to get in between the elbows anytime they want, whether it's off a ball screen, one-on-one attack, or curling in off a down screen, and they play in the heart of the defense, and they use their height and their athleticism to shoot over you. So at some level, you're saying to win a game, you want to make the other team shoot tough contested twos, and they seem comfortable doing that. And so we're going to have to do our best to try to keep them out between the elbows, and if they do come in there, do our best to contest every shot they take.
Does it remind you anyway of the Nevada team you played a couple years ago that won your conference that had just bigger guys and just shot over people?
Yeah, it was.
You know, a ton of.
Yeah, it was the Martin twins in the NBA. It was Caroline. Those guys played a lot of aggressive one-on-one, and they had height and athleticism and had an ability to shoot over the top. But we're pretty good defensively, and we're not going to leave a guy on the island. We're going to give as much help as we can without giving up the three. But we're a pretty good defensive team, and so hopefully we can present some challenges to them that'll make at least life tougher on the court.
And last thing for me, you mentioned transfers. Already there's a bunch of guys who've jumped in the portal. Some guys are making decisions already. How do you, as a team in the tournament that obviously is going to have to be active in the transfer market this spring, how do you approach that? Are you having conversations with guys behind the scenes in this downtime, or are you just shutting it all down until after the tournament?
I talk to a recruit every day. So we are, as we sit here all day, we've done our Syracuse prep. We work on it every day for hours. I got up last night at 2 in the morning and watched an hour and a half of tape because I couldn't sleep. So we're preparing for Syracuse, but we know the lifeline to any program is recruiting. And so every coach here in this bubble is making recruiting calls.
And you said that you watched tape at 2 in the morning. Was that of Syracuse or was that of recruits?
No, Syracuse. Syracuse. The more tape I watch, the more nervous I get, so I better quit watching tape.